You join me here on a beautiful April morning in the glasshouse where I'm going to sow some broccoli seed in a tray. The first thing to do is make sure you've got a decent tray, plenty of drainage, and the second most important bit is some great compost. Here we've got some seed compost which I'm going to put in this tray, level it off fairly roughly, making sure it's clean. Once we know it's level, we can then firm it down because plants need stability and they need the anchorage within the compost. And my good and trusty firming block, some gentle but firm firming, and the important thing is not to overdo it because these modern composts have been developed so that they get enough air and water, porosity and content. So don't over firm and squash all that air out. Make sure the surface is level and always clean around the edges. Because now we're ready to sow the seed, and what we don't want to do is contaminate any seed that we may be putting back in the packet. Today, of course, many seeds come in these fantastically airtight and waterproof little containers, so open them carefully and then in a cleanish hand, or certainly a dry hand, this is the way I prefer to do it. Take out about enough seed for this tray, close the packet up, put it in a safe place, and then I find one of the easiest ways is to place the seed on the palm of my hand and fold your hand so there's a little crease down the middle, and as you tap, the seed falls out along that little crease in your hand in a very controlled way. And experience will mean that you can spread it pretty evenly across the surface of that tray, like that. Now the camera may not pick up the fine detail. If you want to practice, use some dry sand because then you can just keep going. But it's a great way of doing seed sowing with smallish seed. So the seed's in place, and the important thing now is not to pick up the tray and cause too much disruption because that seed will roll about. We want that even spacing of seed so that it's much easier to pick those seedlings out in a few days' time. Depending on the type of seed, we need to cover it possibly. Always look at the seed packet. So here I'm using the same compost, of course. I'm going to put it in a sieve and then very carefully get a uniform covering across those seeds. A little bit more on that far end, because we want a uniform covering to hopefully encourage a uniform germination. Now you could say that's ready for putting in on the bench, but it needs one more absolutely vital thing, and that's some water. Always clean off the edge of the tray, but before I go and water it, I've got to put the label in because it's very difficult now to tell what's actually in that tray. Have I sown the seed or is it empty? So before you move it, get the label in. Always put the label in a set place so you can know where it is. And that is now ready for taking outside and putting the water on. I'm not going to do it in here because it'll make a terrible mess and get all this compost soggy. So we'll set off outside, water them in. Once that compost is moist, we can get the seeds back in the warmth of this glass house, ready to start growing.